Today is Remembrance Day, a day when we can stop, pause, and reflect for a moment and think about our British Armed Forces, those servicemen and women who have given their lives for our freedoms, for our liberties, and indeed the people across the world, those who have given their lives, the fallen. But before we get into our service today, I would like to take a moment and pause and pray. And maybe we could say together the Lord's Prayer or Yahweh's Prayer. Let's bow our heads. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who have trespassed against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, thine is the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. So we do have some really interesting items on our service agenda today. So I'm hoping that you are going to enjoy them, sit back and have your hearts open, because I believe that Yahweh wants to say something to us, even in this moment as we reflect. We're going to start our service with a song written by our Koi Worship, our production, and we're going to enjoy that song, and the words are going to come on screen. Please feel free to sing along as we have a short time of worship. Thank you.
Long ago in a garden, victory was won when Yeshua said, "Not my will, but thine be done." I know that my Redeemer liveth. I know
We really do have a hope. We really do have a hope. Yeshua was dead. He was dead, but he took the keys of hell, death, and Hades, and he's now living and seated at the right hand of the Father. What a wonderful, wonderful hope that we have. And one day, we will see him again. And that has to be the greatest joy of all of our hearts, to see our fallen hero in the flesh. Oh, what a wonderful day that will be. Throughout this service, as we move into the service, we're going to have what I'm calling a Selah moment. That word Selah is actually just a word that is dropped in from time to time, mainly found in the Psalms. And it just reflects that we should pause for a moment, we should stop, we should think before we move on. So we're going to have some Selah moments throughout our service, and that's a time for you to stop and think about some of the things that you maybe just have heard. And by way of introducing our next item, we are going to pause for a moment. And I'm going to actually ask Micah Green now to share a poem. It's called Rendezvous by Alan Seegar. Micah is one of our incredible talents of the congregation. He's a great rap artist. He's really, really incredible at writing, creative writings and the spoken words. So we've invited him just to share that poem with you. Rendezvous by Alan Seegar. Thank you, Micah.
I have a rendezvous with death at some disputed barricade when spring comes back with rustling shade and apple blossoms fill the air. I have a rendezvous with death when spring brings back blue days and fear. Maybe he shall take my hand and lead me into his dark land, and close my eyes and quench my breath. It may be I shall pass him still. I have a rendezvous with death on some scarred slope of battered hill, when spring comes round again this year, and when the first meadow flowers appear. God knows 'twere better to be deep, pillowed in silk and scented down, where love throbs out in blissful sleep, pulse, night to pulse, breath to breath, where hushed awakenings are dear. But I have a rendezvous with death at midnight in some flaming town, when spring trips north again this year, and I to my pledged word am true. I shall not fail that rendezvous.
I had the great privilege of sitting down with one of our British Armed Forces veterans, to sit down and have a chat with him, to interview him about his army days. And so I was able to edit that down. We didn't have time to do the whole interview, but I've edited that down to give you a small segment of that interview. Stuart, thank you very much for taking the time just to have a chat with me. I'm interested in your experience and really how you came to be in the army. So how did you come to be in the army, you know?
First of all, thank you for asking me to do this on Remembrance Day.
Yes.
It's a great part of my life. I joined the army in the beginning of the 1970s, and I served Queen and Country for 22 years.
Wow.
Glorious years. Up and down the ladder a few times. That means up and down the ranks a few times.
I see.
For being good and bad. I came to be in the army mainly because I wanted to be a Royal Marine Commando. And I went into the recruitment office and I wanted to be a physical education officer. Yeah, so when I asked the officer in the commando's office, he said, well, we've got a 6 months waiting list for anybody who wants to join. So I thought, well, I don't want to hang around on the door for 6 months. So I walked out of there, walked next door to the Army Careers Office and joined the British Army. I only joined for 3 years and I ended up doing 22 years because to me, it wasn't so much about the job, it was about the vocation, and I loved the work. I started off as a chef because to be a physical education officer, you had to have a trade to fall back on in case you got a serious injury and you couldn't do the physical education side.
Okay.
So I became a qualified master chef, which, yes, I did enjoy for a time, but my heart's desire was to go into the physical education department. And within 6 months, I've been transferred into the gymnasium. So I spent at least 18 years
Wow.
working in the gymnasium. I was quite privileged because I was doing a job that I loved and I was posted to units that I loved to be with. I started off with the training department, training battalion of the Army Catering Corps in Aldershot. And then they took me over to the Army Apprentice College, where you get young men and young ladies leaving the school and joining the apprentice. So they're only 16 and they stay with us for 2 years. And that gives you, if you've ever taught children, it gives you great pleasure to see from the first day they come to you as raw people who can't wash, can't cook, can't clean, can't iron. We teach them everything, and at the end of the 2 years, they've learnt all their military skills. They've got a good education, English, maths, science, weaponry, whatever. At the end of the 2 years, when they do a pass-out parade, it's like you stand there tall and proud, and the parents are there going, that's my boy, that's my daughter, and they're proper soldiers, and they leave our training regiment and join the regular soldiers. My speciality was physical education, but I also run an outward bound school in Wales, in the Brecons. I used to teach caving, rock climbing, canoeing, windsurfing, mountaineering, but my speciality was caving, and I was quite lucky that the Royal Geographical Society called on me to put a team together to actually do a caving expedition to Indonesia.
Wow.
Now, a few years before that, Blue Peter had done the same, but what they did, they went to a country where they mapped all the streams that was on top of the land, where we as caving specialists, we went to Indonesia, we took a local guard who said, there's a hole in the ground here. He didn't know what was in there, so we was going underground where nobody had ever been before. On my journey in the army, I worked with 8th Regiment at Catterick Garrison. That's when I first met Chris Akibusi. Everybody knows him. I was his personal trainer for a time there.
I ask you, when you joined the army, was there ever a thought that you would be out on the battlefield? Because when I think about the army, I think these people have signed up for their country. They may not come back. What I mean, obviously you've moved into sort of catering and various bits and pieces, but was your thought ever that you would be out on the front line, that you might even have to use your gun that you've been trained in and for?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, when you join the force, you're a soldier first.
Right.
Everything else comes secondary.
Okay.
So if there's any trouble and you're called upon to go, you go like, yes, I wear lead medals.
What are those
Right,
medals?
one is the long service
Right.
and good conduct. One is for the United Nations for peacekeeping tour that I did. And the other one is Northern Ireland, where the troubles in Northern Ireland. My active service was on the streets of Northern Ireland. Yes, when you first join, I want to be a soldier, But you soon realise war is not glamorous.
Right.
It kills people's hearts, it kills families, kills innocent people. You're there to protect the innocent. We never go out to kill people purposely. We're there to defend the rights of the innocent.
Right.
Um,
And that's really quite an important point, isn't it?
Yeah. But was on the streets of Ireland. I've done 2-3 tours in Northern Ireland, 6 months at a time. And people in England that I used to talk to say, oh, the Irish this, the Irish that. I said, you don't know them. You see what is given out on the TV. You listen to what's on the TV and you read what's in the paper. But when you go over to Northern Ireland and you meet the people, they're completely different. They're nice, generous people. They'll do anything for you. Fair enough, there's always a bad egg in the group, so that's the way you go. But you have, when you're over there, you still have to be very cautious, because you could go somewhere with somebody, go into a building through that front door, and as you're sat down, somebody else comes in that back door, and they take you away. I think, as I told you, you've always got to be ready, because you never know what's going to. But I'm proud to say that my grandfather served in the First World War and the Second. My dad served in the Second World War. I've served for Northern Ireland, and I found out a few weeks back my grandson had joined the Royal Navy. So the family history is carrying on. Yeah. But I just think it's a great career for people, and
you've enlightened me, and can I say personally, thank you very much for your service to the UK, to the world, because people like you giving their lives to protect people like me. So I personally want to say thank you very much, and thank you for taking the time just to share a small snippet of your journey in the army. So thank you for that.
The British soldier in the 21st century. The average British soldier is 19 years old. He is a short-haired, well-built lad who, under normal circumstances, is considered by society as half man, half boy. Only just old enough to buy a round of drinks, but old enough to die for his country and for us. He is about a stone lighter than when he left, because he's working or fighting from dawn to dusk and well beyond. He may have trouble writing letters home, but he can strip a rifle in 25 seconds and reassemble it in the dark. He can recite every detail of a machine gun or grenade launcher and use either effectively if he has to. He can apply first aid like a professional paramedic. He can march until he is told to stop, or play dead still until he is told to move. He obeys orders instantly and without hesitation, but he is not without a rebellious spirit or a sense of personal dignity. He keeps his water bottle full and his feet dry. He may sometimes forget to brush his teeth, but he never forgets to clean his rifle. He can cook his own meals, mend his own clothes, fix his own hurts. He has seen more suffering and death than he should have in his short lifetime. He has wept in public and in private for friends who have fallen in combat, and he is unashamed to show it or admit it. Just as with generations of young people before him, he is paying the price for our freedom. He is the latest in a long line of British fighting men that have kept this country free for hundreds of years. Today, this line of fighters equally includes the brave young women who are also doing their part in this tradition of going to war when our nation's politicians call on us to do so. They ask for nothing from us except our respect, friendship, and understanding. We may not like what they do, but sometimes they don't like it either. They just have to do it. Remember them always, for they have earned our respect and admiration with their blood.
is he? He walks among the lamps of gold, his eyes like flames of fire. Who is he? His head and hair are white like wool, his feet like burnished bronze. His face is shining like the sun. Who is he? His right hand holds 7 stars, his mouth a 2-edged sword, his voice like the sound of swelling seas. Who, oh, who is he? I am he that liveth and was dead. Behold, I am alive for evermore. I hold the keys that unlock death. I have the keys of hell. Fear not. I am alive for evermore. I am Alpha and Omega, the firstborn from the dead. Alive! I am alive for evermore. By Valerie Walsop. And I have the great pleasure of introducing to you Valerie Walsop, who is a senior member of our congregation who has served decades and decades and decades in the ministry of the word to the congregation of Yahweh. And so she's going to present to us a really short mini sermon, actually 10 minutes long. So sit back and hear what Yahweh will say through her today. Thank you.
Shalom. On Remembrance Sunday, we're encouraged to think about all the amazing men and women who, over the decades, have given their lives to protect our country, our freedoms, and our families. This year, as we have watched war cruelly and unexpectedly devastate the Ukraine, the price of war has become horrifyingly real in all its ugliness, hasn't it? We respectfully salute all those heroes who continue to protect and defend their land. A hero is someone who dedicates their life to something they believe in, someone who achieves extraordinary goals which affect others. We find this type of person in all walks of life and in every age group. So many heroic people emerged during the pandemic, didn't they? And the Pride of Britain Awards reveal amazing heroes in our own nation. Even so, there are many unsung heroes who dedicate themselves to help those in need. They give so many differing things. Time, money, energy and effort, just to name a few. Among those heroes, I believe, are the multitude of folk who give themselves to Yeshua. Give themselves to do what he asks, live as he expects, love as he loves, to lay down their lives to further his cause and to do his will. Being a believer in today's world requires courage and resolve. There's so much being punched into our world to pull down righteous standards. Wickedness and sin violates our TV screens. It floods our news bulletins. I believe it takes tenacity and courage to hold on to faith and hope. We're all soldiers. The Bible teaches that. It tells us that as believers we're in a war. We're not battling against men and women, against people, no, but against spiritual forces of wickedness. The Apostle Paul wrote, "Our fight is not against any physical enemy. It is against organizations and powers that are spiritual." We are up against the unseen power that controls this dark world and spiritual agents from the very headquarters of evil. But we are not alone. Hebrews chapter 11 is known as the roll call of faith. It lists many people of faith who have gone before, people who have believed in Yahweh as we do, who have walked with him and loved him as we do. Some of these went through extraordinary times of trial. Others overcame temptation and difficulty. They were ordinary men and women who did extraordinary things. Verse 1 of chapter 12 says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down." Isn't that an exciting thought? We are surrounded by heroes of the faith. You know, we're actually involved in the longest lasting and most significant war ever. It's the fight for the souls of humanity, and the results of this war will have eternal consequences. But you know, we're not fighting blind or in the dark. There's a master plan, and it is Yahweh's plan. And what really blesses and astonishes me is the fact that what he has planned for the end time cannot be completed without you and me, without us. Hebrews chapter 11 verse 40 records, Yahweh had something better planned for our day, and it was not his plan that they, that's all the people in the roll call of faith, that they should reach perfection without us. We matter in this great fight. Our ordinary, everyday lives are making a mark in this battle. You know, battle has consequences. And sometimes in this warfare, we can get wounded. We can be wounded emotionally, spiritually, physically. Sometimes even the foundations of our faith can be shaken. We are soldiers. There are standards. We will have challenges. We will have problems. But what we do have consistently is an exceptional leader. Our commander-in-chief is Yeshua, the Messiah himself. In his vision of heaven, the Apostle John had this to record about Yeshua. He wrote, "I heard the voices of thousands and millions of angels around the throne, and of the living beings and the elders, and they sang in a mighty chorus, 'Worthy is the Lamb who was slaughtered to receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and glory and honor and blessing.'" That is our commander-in-chief. I have great respect for the huge company of ordinary people who are following him. Men and women like you and me, who are giving their lives for what they believe in. That gift of a life, expresses itself in everyday acts of sacrifice, self-sacrifice, and bravery as we follow Yeshua. And by Yahweh's grace, we are leaving footprints behind for others to follow. You know, we have come to this moment in time today through all that life has thrown at us. Some of us have been wounded, but we are still holding on to our faith. I want to assure you today that none of this goes unnoticed. We have a place among the heroes of heaven. We have a place. You have a place among the heroes of heaven. As the sun sets on Remembrance Day, let's turn our thoughts for these final moments towards our great commander. He gave himself for his comrades, dying that we might live. Without him, we wouldn't be here today. He made that supreme sacrifice that we've been honouring on this day of remembrance, his life. On the night before he died, he said, "Greater love has no one than this, that he lay down his life for his friends." His sacrifice secured the ultimate success of the age-long war against sin. He has secured the victory. And I believe that all those who believe in him will one day find themselves part of another thrilling scene also described in Revelation. One day you and I will be a part of the vast multitude which John saw, a multitude from every nation, tribe, people and language, which no one could number, that were standing before the throne and before the Lamb. They were robed in white, with palm branches in their hands, and they cried out in a loud voice, "Salvation belongs to our God, who is seated on the throne, and to the Lamb." These are the heroes of faith.
Loved by a king, his majesty, he shed his blood and set me free. The nail-pierced wounds, he died for me. The glorious love of Yeshua, the glorious love of Yeshua. His love, this I know, pure as the whitest snow, gracious gift so freely given, the glorious love of Yeshua. the glorious love of Yeshua. So to my life here on the earth, sacrifice for our second birth, purchase paid for, clothed in mercy, the glorious love of Yeshua, the glorious love of Yeshua. Oh, His love, this I know, pure as the whitest snow.
We've come to the end of our service. My thanks to everybody who has contributed today. But thank you most of all to our servicemen and women who have given their lives. And thank you to Yahweh for sending Yeshua to be our great hero of the faith. Thank you for sharing this time with us, and we trust that you've really been touched by it. You've felt something. You've been moved by some of the poems that you've heard and the message that we've heard today. Take that to heart, think about it, reflect, because today is a day to remember. Let us not forget. Let us always remember. I hope to see you soon. Yahweh's blessing be upon you. His shalom, the peace that passes all understanding, be your portion today and always.